Now, it is my pleasure, where is he? There he is. It is my pleasure to welcome spoken word. You guys know, the keynotes at these conferences, Foothold Management has decided that whenever we go to conferences, there is some bureaucrat from some government agency who drones on and on about some new regulation that they're instituting and this. And I'm not saying that stuff's not important, but you guys get a lot of that. So we take our keynotes as an opportunity to present something completely afield from what you guys do every day. And sometimes that really works, and sometimes it really doesn't. And it's always a risk, and I'm always excited to try. So this keynote is spoken word poet Marshall Davis Jones. His versatility as a poet has led him to many esteemed places. Today, he will assume the position of world bridger, weaving the rhythms of the human experience throughout his poetry in what will undoubtedly prove to be an inspirational and thought-provoking start to today's expo. So without further ado, I present Marshall Davis Jones.
Good morning. How are you? And you. And you. Introducing the new Apple I Person Complete with multi-touch. Doesn't it feel good to touch? Doesn't it feel good to touch? Compatible with your iPod and your iPad. Doesn't it feel good to touch? Doesn't it feel good to touch? No friends? There's an app for that. No life? There's an app for that. You are a complete loser. We're working on it. Doesn't it feel good to touch? Doesn't it feel good to touch? Doesn't it feel good to touch? My world has become so digital that I have forgotten what that feels like. We used to connect when friends formed cliques. Now it's even more difficult to connect now that cliques form friends. But who am I to judge? I face Facebook more than books face me, hoping to book face-to-faces. I update my status, 420 spaces to prove I'm still breathing. Failure to do this daily means my whole web-wide world will forget that I exist. But with 5,000 friends online and only 5 I can count in real life, why wouldn't I spend more time in a world where there are more people that like me? Wouldn't you? Here, it doesn't matter if I'm an amateur person, as long as I have a profile, my smile. It's 50% genuine. 50% genuine HD, you would need Blu-ray to read but it's really me, but I'm not that focused. 10 tabs open, hoping my problems will be resolved with a 1500 by 1600 resolution, proving we might have made a few missteps in this evolution. Doubled over, we used to sit in treetops, so we swung down to stand upright, and someone slipped a disc, now we're doubled over at desktops. From the Garden of Eden to the branches of Macintosh, apple picking has always come at a great cost. iPod, iMac, iPhone, iChat. I do all of these things without making eye contact. We used to sprint to pick and store blackberries. Now we run to the Sprint store and pick blackberries. It's scary. I can't hear the sound of Mother Nature speaking over all this tweeting. And our ability to feel along with it is fleeting. You would think headphone jacks inject in the flesh the way we connect, disconnect, power on until we are powerless. We are love drugged. So we e-trade, email, emotion like e-commerce because now money can buy love for $9.95 a month. Click to proceed to checkout. Click to X out where our hearts once were. Click. I've uploaded this hug. I hope she gets it. Click. I'm spending time with my wife. I hope she's logged in. Click. I'm holding my daughter over a Skype conference call while she's crying in the crib in the next room. Click. So when my phone goes off of my hip, I touch, I touch, I touch, I touch, I touch, and I touch, because in a world where laughter is never heard and voices are only read, we are so desperate to feel that we hope our techno-logic can reverse the universe until the screen touches us back. And one day it will, when our technology is advanced enough to make us human again. Thank you. So when I got here, I flew in from California, and when I got here, I didn't stay at a hotel. I didn't sleep on the street either. But I went to stay with a friend in Brooklyn. Thank you so much. I went to stay with a friend in Brooklyn, And I woke up this morning with a thought. I have to talk today, and I don't know what I'm going to talk about. That should horrify the coordinators completely. No. I woke up this morning, and I thought, I want to go back to where it started. So I walked across the Brooklyn Bridge with the sunrise. And the Brooklyn Bridge is not necessarily where it started, but where it started over. I didn't begin speaking until I was 3. And when you don't speak until you're 3, family members think they're like you guys, healthcare professionals, right? And they try to diagnose you and say that there are things that are wrong, perhaps. And once I began to discover words, I got confused right away. 3 years old, 3 and a half, have a friend of mine, or babysitter, she's not my friend, obviously, you know, getting familiar, right? So she goes, peace. And I say, peace of what? I'm 3. I want candy, cake, peace, peace. Peace of what? Peace, no, peace. Peace of what? So already I'm with words, with the thing that I was told because I didn't use them, there was a problem. I'm already having a problem with communicating, with symbols and connection. So I move on, and I go to my mom one day. I'm about 4, and I am fascinated with letters and how they create words. So once I discover this, I sit at her word processor, and this was back when the screen was black and the letters were green, so I just aged myself. Isn't that awesome? I sit there and I type and I type and I type, and random letters come up, and I consistently ask her if any group of letters was a word. And then I got to this one word that I'm not going to say because you have children and they hear your thoughts. So I said, is this a word? And she looks at it and she smiles at me. She says, yes, but you're never supposed to say that. Okay, so now here's this connection between what someone says and what they mean that I'm completely lost on. And then there are words themselves, and I can't use them. Okay, this talking thing is really not helping me much. Moving forward, I'm sitting in my room, grounded, as 5-year-olds get when they don't do right with their parents. And the way that the room was set up was I'm sitting on my bed, and it's a studio apartment thing. So I'm diametrically opposed to my mom watching television. The blue screen's on her face, and I can't go out there to watch TV. I'm grounded. So I come out and I say, Mommy, how do you spell love? L-O-V-E. Right. How do you spell very? How do you spell you? Much. Come back. I draw. I paint with crayons. Beautiful heart. I come back with my card, my plea, my connection. Mommy, I love you very much. She says, thank you, sends me back to my room. Okay, this is really not helping me. My ability to connect using words is not helping me. But there was always this desperation to do just that, and that is connect. So growing up through school, I enjoyed writing. I enjoyed creating short stories and all of the like. And I got to the 8th grade and was asked to do a Martin Luther King oratory contest. And the audition was simple. Come in with a speech memorized, and let's see what happens. So I go in, and I audition, and I do my best Martin Luther King impression. I have a dream, and deeply rooted in the American dream, so on, one day, and yada, yada. And I'm in the 8th grade, so I'm not supposed to have a voice like that in the 8th grade, prepubescent. And I get this audition, and I get in, and I ultimately wind up winning. And that was when I found that there was this power in what we can do with words. That my selfish desires to get out of punishment when I was a child versus this man's unselfish desire to create some sort of unity between people. So I won this contest, and I was supposed to perform and present in front of the entire city of Jersey City. And I chose to play kickball because I have priorities, right? I'm a kid, and my youth group was having kickball that day, and I decided I'm going to go to kickball instead of going to this particular event. Horrible. I definitely wouldn't be here today if I continued having priorities like that, right? Like, yeah, Foothold, I'm going bowling. I'll be there later, right? So I go, and I wound up losing this opportunity to travel as an actor within this college program. I wound up losing the key to the city. I wound up losing a lot of things. Why do I bring this up? Because again, it was a moment where my connection and my desire to connect was one of a selfish ambition and not of the mission that I had, and that was to engage people with something meaningful. I made a very different choice. So moving along with stories and connecting. I grew up listening to hip hop, and I really was fascinated by the rhythms and the cadences of the words. And I had a friend of mine whose dad knew how to beatbox, and he knew how to beatbox and rap. And if you're familiar with beatboxing, that's making percussive sounds like with your mouth, and he would rap. And I was fascinated with this, so I would try to do that. I would try to, beatbox and rhyme and find a way to get attention, which is what I wanted, right? Everything that I was doing up until that point as a child, we want attention. I found that as a new way to get people to look at me, to get people to pay attention to me. So I learned how to beatbox, learned how to rap, and that turns into learning how to battle rap. And battle rapping is when you're competing. You want to rap, and you want to out-rap and be better than the next person by playing the dozens, usually saying insults and disrespectful things, and that's how you win. So again, my use of words to gain something selfish for me. And this led me to wanting to pursue a career in hip hop. Now, I wanted to be a rapper. I was a part of a youth group, and I had to perform and do things like that. But I wanted, or I thought I wanted, fame and all of the other things that come along with becoming a hip hop artist. As I got older and left high school, my feelings changed. Not necessarily about pursuing hip-hop, but pursuing the reason why I wanted to do it. I thought I wanted to become this conscious rapper. I wanted to be a rapper who was aware of the social ills of the world, who was aware of the things that were going on in his community, aware of what was happening to the world, and use my work to exemplify that. So I go in and I start, my mom buys me this machine to help me make songs. And I began writing raps and writing songs and performing at open mics and doing all of these different things. I was bad. Obviously, I'm not a hip-hop star, or I wouldn't be standing here right now. But along the way, I had a really interesting crossroad. You see, I also, while performing and trying to get my work off the ground, I had a relationship that was opposed to this dream. I had a dream over here, a relationship over here. They weren't meeting in the middle. And for me, dealing with a lot of my past and a lot of my things growing up, it was a very hard thing. You want to pursue your goals and your dreams, and you want the people that you love to want you to pursue your goals and dreams too, as much as you do. And then there was the industry that I wanted to be a part of. And I found myself writing these songs, and people were saying, no, that song's not going to work, that song's not going to work, this is not going to work. I remember when I had my manager tell me, I need you to write a, I can't even use this word, words I can't use. I want you to write this particular kind of record. And I went home and I cried. I cried because here it was, I am attempting to use my words and my use of language to inspire others, to move others, to want others to make change. And here's this wall of people, this wall of sound that says, I can't. So in 2006, I'm standing on the Brooklyn Bridge. For the second time, I'm contemplating what people contemplate on a bridge when they're feeling down and out. And there was an idea a slight, small little voice. It said, go to the New Eurekan Poets Cafe. Now, mind you, I had only been to the New Eurekan Poets Cafe once. It's in the Lower East Side. If you ever want to go on a Friday night, please do. But the Friday night that I went, a friend had invited me, and this is while I was still pursuing rap and hip-hop and trying to be a rapper. And I wasn't really impressed at all with what I saw. It was a competition. The poets were not really that great, at least I thought. But that was the second time in my life I had been exposed to spoken word poetry as an art form by way of another particular artist. But that night, I don't remember the trip from the bridge to the New Eurekan Poets Cafe. What I do remember is picking up my Nokia phone, and it was a Nokia. Oh my gosh, this phone, it was far from the phones that we have today because the type was all pixelated and the map was all nasty. But I found the address, and I walk off the bridge, and I somehow make it there. And the only other thing I remember is a light that signified that I was down the block from the New Eurekan Poets Cafe. I walk into the New Eurekan Poets Cafe, and as soon as I walk through the door, I can tell that there's something different. It's not like the last time I went to the New Eurekan Poets Cafe. The energy, there was something in the room that was on fire. I walk through, it's crowded. I walk upstairs, I'm on a balcony, I'm looking down, and I'm situated from the stage the way I'm situated from you all right now, like this. And 5 poets proceed one after the other to get on stage and light this room on fire. 5 poets that chose to use their words for something more meaningful than their selfish gain. And I also saw a room of people, 300 or more, fired up, excited, inspired. And I looked down at this moment right here. And it was that moment that I decided that this is exactly what I'm going to do. That there was the perfect marriage between my use of language, my desire to help people, and the audience that would be willing to listen. So I ravaged through the slam poetry scene. Every mic that there was to be found, you can find me standing there sharing a new poem, a new idea. Now, the thing about slam, which is funny, is slam is a competitive poetry outlet where random judges are given scorecards. Those random judges are given scorecards. They score you from 1 to 10 based on what they feel. And what's great about them being random judges is that you can't say, oh, it's because this person is from such and such company or this person has such and such interests and that's why they didn't like my poem. No, you have 5 random people you've never met, you don't know who they are, and they don't know you. But you have 3 minutes to change that. So one of the first things I had to learn about slam was knowing your audience and knowing who you're communicating with. First slam ever. I was sitting in the audience, and Helena D. Lewis is the host. She says, come on stage, you look like a poet. I'm wearing a poet's hat, I guess. That made me look like a poet. And I had a soul patch, I guess, that made me look like a poet. So I wound up getting on stage by accident. And my first poem, was this poem about how you don't have to go to college to be successful, right? Now, mind you, the judges that night were a group from NYU, a group from Cornell, a group from Columbia, and two other judges that weren't affiliated with a college per se. But here I am, like, yeah, you don't have to go blah, blah, blah to college, blah, blah, blah. That means 0, 6.2, 5, and the other scores don't even count. But what I learned that night was the power of communication. And what does that mean? Communication, right? When we use the word communication, there's words that are together. Words don't, they're not, when you make words, they're not just by themselves. They're made by memes, and memes are little fractions or fragments of words. That's why when you look in a dictionary, they're like, okay, this word is from the Latin, this word is from this word is from there. And communication within it has the word commune, community. And when you think about community, community is where we're all together, right? If I'm in a community gathering, there's a sense of equality amongst everyone, and we're all gathering here to commune today, to speak and to share and to understand. So clearly, my message that particular day did not communicate to who I was talking to, because they're clearly going to college and they believe that they need to go to college to become successful. So I learned then that, okay, well, I need to know who I'm communicating with. And another coach told me that slam teaches you how to be universal. And what did that mean to me? We have 3 minutes to say something that means something to everyone. 3 minutes. That's it. To somehow tap into the experience of what it means just to be human, to feel, to hurt, to bridge. Julia Roberts said in the interview with Oprah that a word is an architecture of an idea. And I thought that that was extremely fascinating. So, of course, I began doing research on architecture, blueprinting, and things of the like. And all that goes into building something, from conception to completion, the intention, the drawing it out, the mapping it out, the image, the logo. Word actually comes from the Latin logos. That's word. And when you look at a logo, as in what you have here, you have these, Foothold has a logo. You have this image here. The power behind your superpower is, we can say this, right? It's awesome. But what would these words be without this image? This woman is clearly standing on her desk, feeling pretty mighty, might I add. But she's here. Logos, the word, the image, the picture, the bridge, the architecture of an idea. Ideas. When we think about ideas, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Not the image. When you think of an idea, you think of a light bulb, right? That's the first thing that comes to mind for me. But what are other things that come to mind when you think of an idea? When we watch cartoons, when the character's having an idea, what usually happens? The cloud, right? He's not saying anything. There's no words to this. It's just the image, the thought, the picture, the architecture, the blueprint. And then we cross that bridge with what? With the words that we say or the actions that we take. Interestingly enough, language and speech is attributed to the hands. That's why when you look at different cultures with different body language, you can not say anything, but your hands and your body can say a lot without you even speaking a word, right? So if someone's standing there like this and saying, you know, I think that's a pretty good idea. No, they don't think it's a pretty good idea, right? Or I think that's a pretty good idea. Yes, they do. The hands, the things that we create with our hands, attribute to the language and the words with which we're trying to communicate. So you think about the great painters like Da Vinci or Michelangelo or Picasso, or you think about people that have built things with their hands, like Da Vinci, Michelangelo. What they were trying to communicate, the bridge that they were trying to cross. And why is it that we find these things so beautiful and so alluring? Because there's something about them that is innately human. There's something about them that doesn't alienate us. There's something about us that doesn't distance them from us, but helps us to draw closer. So what am I getting at? The idea of this entire conference is from confusion to clarity. So how best for me to do that than to begin by confusing you with what the heck I'm talking about? A friend of mine told me once, he said, Marshall, you need to learn to be okay with silence. He said that you want to use words so much and you're so uncomfortable. You always feel like you have to put on a show. But if you learn how to deal with the silence, with the quiet, then everything will change. Zero. The number 0 is probably one of the most ignored numbers. No one really cares about 0 too much. When you write your birthday on an application, if there's a 0 before the 1, you will not count that 0. Some people will just write 1/9/1985. That's my birthday, January 9th. Give me a gift if you'd like. But 0 is the most significant number. If you put 0 before 1, 0 is nothing. If you put 0 after 1, put another 0 after 1, there's infinity, expansion, growth. So out of silence comes something. Continued silence brings more things. Perfect example of this was the birth of my daughter, or the pregnancy of my lady before my daughter. There's a quiet. There's just a bubble, a 0, an expansion. You don't know what's going on. You can't see it. Then there's a function. There's a time when there's a bridge that's being crossed. Birth. Bridges between us, between worlds. When my daughter was born, her mother was sitting in front of her. Well, obviously her mother was sitting in front of her, right? But her mother's mother was sitting in front of her. And there was this line, this lineage, one generation to the other, leading my daughter into the world. An interesting thing about birth, for some, is some believe that it is important that the child pushes through. There's a story, a parable about two butterflies, a butterfly in a cocoon, two butterflies in a cocoon, and these little boys, they watch this butterfly come out the cocoon, and he pushes, it pushes, it pushes, it pushes, it pushes. And the two little boys think, wow, that sucks that he had to push. The next time a butterfly comes, we're going to help it out. So the next butterfly comes. It's starting to push and push and push. And they pull the cocoon off the butterfly. And the butterfly's wings are too weak, and it is unable to fly. So my daughter pushes and pushes and pushes while my lady assists. She pushes into the world, silent and unbreathing. Another pregnant moment, quiet. The midwife rushes in. She does everything she needs to do. We're all excited, and she's like, quiet! She needs to think. She needs silence. Life is dependent upon silence. Life is dependent upon quiet to bring something. She rushes in. She does everything she needs to do. My daughter begins to breathe. And that was when I realized, again, the power of silence, the power of quiet. Now, how does this all make sense? Where is this all going? Over the course of my life, I've endured lots of things. Trials and tribulations, those of which I cannot always share and speak. But I got to a moment where I stood on a bridge and had an opportunity to make a choice in the quiet, in the void, in the silence. And walking across that bridge was probably one of the most difficult decisions I had to make, because I too was in a cocoon, a caterpillar with many feet, with many legs, with many words, with much language and much things to say. At that moment, in the cocoon, hanging on the bridge, hanging by a moment, I decided to push, to move out, to break free, and find words on the other side. We are all connected. We are all connected. You breathe. Your breath is empty. There's nothing. You can't see it, but you breathe it. And because you breathe it and you breathe it and you breathe it, we're all connected. There's silence, the void, the quiet. That connects us, that brings us together. We are more than us. When you were born, there was a tiny chord still beating. It was nature's secret. Nature's secret. That two hearts were never meant to beat alone. And it is when we are connected that we are most alive. Then it is cut, and we forget. So when my daughter is old enough to ask me, Daddy, why do I have a belly button? I will help her remember. I will say, oh, that is your special dot. She will be confused. She will look down at her coloring book and I would say, you see these? These are dots. And all of them want to play their part in the big picture, but they can't because they forgot that they came here together. But that is where you come in. If you can draw the lines and help them remember who they are, then they will see the bigger picture. To lift us through the rubble and the ruin, to push us into the next stage of the future. I had a friend who told me that all we need is to not see the bigger picture, but to only see our puzzle piece. If we can quietly and silently remember and understand why, then we can lead our way through the dark, push our way to the next stage of evolution. So I look at the kids in the eyes that I teach and I say, listen, the shotgun in your soul is the start gun to go, to chase your dreams, to follow your heart, to catch your breath. That is the human race. The human race is not a rush to the finish line, but it is us holding our hands as we rush together until the line is finished. So we hold hands with our hands held tight and our heads held high with the flame and the passion and the fire to burn both, because this is how we lead into the future. This is how we rush into the future. This is how we be the future. If we can draw the lines, if we can connect the dots, if we can quietly hold our peace for more than us, then when we are gone into the wind and the dirt and the dust, someone will look back and say that we gave. Someone will look back and say that we sacrificed. Someone will look back and say that we were here. And when we were, we lived not for us, because we were more than us. We were all of us. We were one. Thank you.